Recently, we had Screeps Warfare Championship 213, and I wanted to share some of the best combat of the event. Let's get right into it. Immediately, we see Modus with a quad, and a remote defender quickly die as it tries to intercept. Then in the homeroom, we start to see some proper defense. So very quickly, the spawn spawns a ranged defender. Now it should have spawned a melee defender, as melee defenders can deal a lot more damage a lot faster, and that would push the quad away from the ramparts. You can see right here it's right up to the ramparts, and it's ranged mass attacking, which is dealing a ton of damage that a melee defender could have alleviated by pushing it one tile back. And that way, ranged mass attack is less effective. And you can see this happen right when the melee defender gets there. Modus's quad intelligently goes back away one tile so that the melee defender and ranged defender and towers can't team up to kill it. Now the next thing we do is spawn a repair, and you can see that's out here. It's repairing some roads, and it'll soon start repairing that rampart to get it back to higher hits. What our defense strategy here is to push the quad back, not kill it, but just push it back so it can't range mass attack, and then easily out-repair the damage, because, well, repair is a bit unbalanced. You can see we're spawning a second melee defender here. While not necessary, it does make sure that the quad can't bounce in a couple ticks and then bounce back out, taking a bit of damage but not ultimately dying. Now you can see, even once we have the defenders we need, we're still spawning more repairs, just so that we can not only out-repair the damage this quad is doing, but prepare in case one or two more quads are coming and we need to survive against that. Now, after enough time, Modus's quad members start to die from old age, and then we can pick off the remaining ones with the tower and defenders. Now, I promise it won't just be Modus attacking me, but I wanted to show the escalation of the attacks. As you can see here, this quad is boosted and it's attacking my second room, which is less defended. Now, you can see there's not fully boosted attack parts on this quad, and that's because Modus had some boosting issues. You'll see that as a trend throughout this Warfare Championship, and it really helps. There are some melee defenders here, or I'm not quite sure what they are from Modus, but they come in and they tank some tower damage, which is a great idea. I'm happy he implemented something like that. Anyways, so again we're spawning a ranged defender, which we should not be doing. We should be spawning again the melee defenders first. Now this is what I find interesting. Modus changes his targeting to where the defender is sitting for seemingly no reason. I mean, it's better to target where defenders aren't, and it's better to target one rampart at a time and not just where the defender is sitting. Nonetheless, we get out our melee defender, we're repairing, everything is going great. Now you'll notice Modus is still fairly out-damaging what we're able to repair, and we're still spawning melee defenders, which probably isn't the best idea. We should probably be getting more repairs out here. But we'll be fixing this code. You'll see I've fixed this code as the round progresses. And I think it's really fun to see how not only do the attacks escalate, but the defense escalates, and it escalates with better code, not just more towers and more creep. There's definitely a problem in this defense. So you can see when the repairs are both repairing at once, they're able to out-repair the damage Modus is doing, but they have to go back to the storage or the terminal to get more energy, and that's when Modus starts dealing more damage. Even when we have 3 repairs, Modus is still out-damaging us to an extent. You can see we're now easily out-repairing the damage Modus is doing, and his quad starts to die from old age. He didn't really renew his creeps very well, so some of them have a lot more ticks to live than the others, which, yeah, a bit of a waste of resources. Alright, I promised it wouldn't just be attacks on me, so this is Aspuff attacking Modus. And I think this is really interesting. So Aspuff has a very unconventional attack strategy. He relies a lot on melee, and he has these quads with 3 creeps that are the same, usually healers, and then 1 creep that might have the melee parts or the range parts, a mix of both, or dismantle parts. Oh, and keep in mind they're tier 3 boosted, so this is a very strong quad being thrown at Modus. And Modus's room here is RCL 7, so it only has 3 towers, but it does have a terminal. You can see there's a lot of energy in that terminal. Another thing I wanted to bring up is if you look at the bottom, you can see a lot of repairs next to the storage, upgrading. Meanwhile, the towers are repairing the ramparts. Those upgraders could be used to repair, which is really what Modus's defense here is lacking. So that's just a bit of an inefficiency. Modus is able to get 3 melee creeps out, but he doesn't have enough rampart space adjacent to the quad to attack them. And he doesn't have 2 layers of quads. So this is probably a great opportunity to have those 2 layers when you have an enemy that is as strong as they are with tier 3 boosted quad, and you only have a few 100,000 hits on your ramparts. If you look at the range creep, you can see some pathing issues, where it's probably trying to get to the rampart, but there's a melee creep in the way. And then there's also that melee creep there that's not getting healed by the towers which are instead repairing the rampart that it's sitting under. It does look like his towers eventually get around to doing this, but they should have done it much faster. At this point, you can see the ramparts are getting pretty much out-repaired. Modus's defense is kind of scuffed, but it does work here. Now here comes the second squad from Aspuff, and it gets very jumbled. Messes up on the side of the ramparts, melee defender hits it, and then it goes under the other quad and gets pummeled to death. It just does not end well. It seems like Aspuff needs to work a bit on his working together code for his squads. And then here you can see his squad starts to die of old age, so it seems like the attack failed, huh? I've skipped forward a few 100 ticks here, and you can see there's a lot of ranged defenders from Modus here. There's also a lot of upgraders in the bottom left, upgraders that, as I mentioned before, could be used for repairing. Now, a lot of these ranged defenders are sitting behind the ramparts, not under, which is a bit of an oversight. And then Slow Motion Ghost here, his creeps can't get out to help defend. Not that they would have done that much anyways. And we see from Modus again, these melee defenders, these repairers, it's good, but he could be doing better. Again, these upgraders down here that could be repairing instead of upgrading, especially since Modus is at a very big threat here with 2 tier 3 boosted melee quads. It's nice, we do see 1 upgrader from Modus here repairing. You can tell it's got a lot of work parts, not much carry, but really he should be sending all of his upgraders because this is a big threat. Now I had to skip forward a bit here, both for time and there was a history bug. Anyways, so you can see these melee quads, which can deal a lot more damage against Aspuff, dancing back and forth. Now, Aspuff could go through these 2 openings he's opened for himself, but because there's a lot of defenders here, he would probably lose his creeps and not get through. Now, Modus could definitely have at least 3 more melee defenders here, and they could make sure to push Aspuff away from the ramparts, which for a creep with melee parts would do so much. You can see here one of the squads dies, and they don't die from old age, they're killed, which is great, but that seemed more like a bug on Aspuff's part than any great defense from Modus. This second squad here, it's going to do something really interesting. But right now, it's just making sure it can fit through without being killed. Perfect, so it makes the gap, and then it starts moving through. It starts taking out some of the defenders in its way. Meanwhile, some of Modus's creeps try to flee away. Now, it's a melee quad with very little damage. It's only got a bit of ranged attack parts on its 3 other creeps. So it's trying to chase after these ranged defenders a bit, and also targeting weird structures up in the right. It's a very weird effort by this quad, but it does right itself in a bit. You'll see. Yeah, so now it seems to be targeting the right thing. It's going south, and it's hitting some roads along the way, which is fine. And then it starts destroying the extensions. And this is a great idea to make sure that big defenders can't be spawned. And that's really great if Modus is able to kill this squad, or if he tries to take back the room. Then he'll have to rebuild those extensions before he can have big defenders. Aspuff actually breaks Modus here, but his code seems to fix itself. And then Aspuff is targeting these towers, which is a great idea, but he's going back and forth. He's not really focusing on one rampart as much as he should be. You can see the range creeps from Modus. They're sucking a lot of energy from the towers. Not that those towers would have done anything better with their energy. And then we get more and more melee. He really likes those melee quads. Eventually, the room is mostly cleaned out, and he works on making more of a gap for his units to get through. He also has some dismantlers you can see on the left to get rid of the ramparts. Okay, this is my favorite part of Warfare Championship. So Silton here had a very interesting composition for a quad. You'll see there's no damage on this. There's only dismantle and heal. So that means Silton can't do anything to any creeps that stand in his way, and you see that from the repairs. I don't think it's intentional, but these repairs stand in the way, and Silton just can't get through. And then we see a melee creep from S-Bands come down. It's got a lot of attack parts. It sits under one of the ramparts, kills the healers, kills the squad. Nothing Silton can do. Silton redeems himself though. He comes back with a melee squad instead. There seemed to be a boost attempt, but it didn't really work. There's some boost on the heal, but it doesn't matter. You can see there's the same melee defender from S-Bands, but it's very quickly killed. And then the repairs that stood in the way of the previous squad, they're instantly killed, and then Silton starts targeting the rampart. Now, if you give it some time, he'll eventually take it out, then he'll go for the spawn, and then, yay, Silton, you redeemed yourself, well done. Alright, so this is one of my expansions. Now this was really far away from one of my other 2 rooms, so I had to get a lot of help from allies, and the ramparts took a while to build up. And this guy has tier 1 boosts with tier 3 heal, so that's a lot of heal, a lot of damage he's going to output there. Luckily, we already have a ton of repairers out. You can see 4, maybe 5, and they immediately start going to that rampart and repairing it. Meanwhile, the spawn is spawning melee defenders. We eventually got that bug fixed. Now the melee defender, along with the towers, are pushing the dismantler back every few ticks, but it's not as much as I would like. So we keep spawning more defenders to make sure we can push it back, and then we eventually, you can see we spawned a repairer there because we're still not out repairing the damage, and some of our repairers are dying from old age. So the towers are wasting a bit of energy with all the firing they're doing, but they are also pushing Modus back from dealing that damage to the rampart, which is really what we're trying to avoid here. We've got a melee defender here that could do something against this squad, but it's instead sitting next to the ranged defender not doing anything, so that's a bit of an issue that needs to be fixed, and you'll see us fix that later on. And then repairs. We still don't have enough repairs here. We're still trying to spawn some more. And energy is not our concern. You can see we have a lot of energy at the bottom. One thing you'll notice from Modus here is the move parts are at the very end of the creep, so that way the work parts get hit, and even though that decreases the damage done to the rampart, it means Modus can flee and get away very easily. You'll notice especially this wasn't the case with Aspuff's creeps in the last battle, where they weren't able to move away, and when they got out damaged, they couldn't flee. By this point, we have a lot of repairs out. We're almost out damaging the massive damage being dealt by this attacker, and we've got a lot of energy too that's being dropped when he hits the rampart, so we can take some energy from that once the dismantler dies, so we can start rebuilding our economy. Now you can see there's some issues with the ramparts, repairs, and ranged attackers trying to get on them, but it's not a huge issue. Alright, so the next battle is Modus attacking Silton. So Modus has tier 1 boosts, and you'll notice Silton doesn't have those entrance ramparts that a lot of other people have, and this will really hurt him. So he has this repair here, which I don't know what it was trying to do, but I don't know, they quickly die. And then this ranged defender tries to get onto the rampart, and then dies. And then this other one here, I don't know what it was doing. This repairer here, he's not out of range of the attacker, so he's killed. And then again, this ranged defender tries to get onto the ramparts, but it loses most of its hits, almost dies, because it doesn't have those onboarding ramparts to protect it. And you'll also notice there are 2 towers, I believe, by Silton, and none of them are healing the creep here. Again, we see another creep almost dying, trying to get on, and it's also not getting healed. They could be dealing some damage here if they were healed. I also don't see Silton ranged mass attacking when he's right next to Modus's creeps, and that's definitely something that loses a lot of damage, a lot of potential damage. And even there, we have one of the defenders walk out of the ramparts and die. I have no clue why that happened. Not sure what code was going on there. But, you know, again, another defender almost dying, getting on. And then these repairers, they just get killed trying to repair. There doesn't seem to be code to avoid positions that enemies can damage at, and there's not roads leading to the ramparts, so that repairers can easily get to the ramparts. Now, I'm hurting on Silton a bit, and they've improved their code a lot since, so it's really just showing how far they've come. Now, with very little repairing and pretty ineffective defenders, Modus is able to break that rampart in Silton's safe modes. Here we've got Slow Motion Ghost, who always has very interesting attacks, attacking Yona, who has probably the most unique defense of any Screeps Warfare Championship participant. You'll notice he has very little ramparts. The ramparts are just so that creeps can go out to remote harvest or whatever. And because of this, Yona has to rely on quads and boost and a lot of ranged to defend from enemies. Now he's got singletons here, which are doing basically nothing, and they're not boosted. Even though there's a terminal, Yona doesn't seem to be using it, and he's got labs, but he's producing stuff instead of using it to boost his defenders. Usually you see him spawn a quad or send a quad from another room, and you will see a quad from another room, but it just doesn't quite do what it should. And then these repairers here, they are repairing that wall because repair is very overpowered. But you can see these swamps are limiting it. They're making it get a lot of fatigue. There's no roads for it to use, and it's really slow repairing. So it's definitely not out repairing the damage Slow Motion Ghost is doing. And I believe Slow Motion Ghost has tier 3 boosts here. Okay, this is the quad from Yona I was talking about. So it's got basically nothing. Normally it would be like a full quad, but Yona's closest room was an RCL 3, I think. So this is the biggest quad it could spawn, which is doing no damage to Slow Motion Ghost. Now I skipped forward a bit because there's a lot of hits on these walls. So one lifetime of quads was not enough for Slow Motion Ghost to breach, but give it some time and he comes back. He's got another one, I believe it's also tier 3 boosted, and we see the same ineffective defense from Yona. So we've got these singletons that go in and bounce back because they have to heal, and then this quad that has basically no damage on it. If its defenders work together and attacked at the same time, they might be able to get some damage in, but there's a lot of things going wrong here that it's not a quick fix to fix. Slow Motion Ghost eventually breaks in here, and despite these swamps, he's able to destroy a lot of these structures. You'll notice there's no ramparts on his spawns, on his storage, on his terminal, on his labs, none. And that might make sense if you're really confident in your outer defense, but anyways, with that, Slow Motion Ghost quickly takes out everything. It seems like Yoner's bot just crashed because no creeps are really moving, and yeah, everything's gone very, very quickly. Alright, so this would be my 4th room, I believe. This was closer to my other room, so it was able to build up a lot faster. And it's a lot closer to Trepidemis, who is attacking me here. He's got, I believe, tier 1 boosts, and my ramparts have a fair number of hits. They scaled up a lot because I kept getting attacked and they kept breaking in, so, you know, after a safe mode it built up a lot. Now we've already got some repairs here, and they're not really repairing the right thing, but it's not like that rampart is all that damaged yet. But yeah, they're repairing the tower right now, which is really not what they should be doing. Nonetheless, we're spawning a melee defender, which is what we should be doing initially. However, Trepidemis is kind of smart with how he accounts for his damage, and he keeps his squad there, knowing that I can't outdamage his heal. Once we built up a lot of defenders, however, and you'll notice there's still not really repairing going on, but we're able to push his attack creeps back and limit the damage he does to us. We even kill one of his creeps, and then with that we can kill his attacker, which is great. And from this, I think Trepidemis just retreats. He doesn't really try that duo again. Alright, here's Aspuff, who has very fun attack code, and he's trying to take on a mirror RCL5. So immediately we see some repairing, and the towers are also helping out, which feels a bit unnecessary right now, but the hits aren't all that high on the ramparts. So then we get a melee defender out very quickly, and that starts dealing a fair number of damage, but not enough to push them back yet. While it is out-damaging, and the towers are helping out, Aspuff is seemingly just not retreating. Yeah, so I think what happened here is Aspuff had his fleeing turned off, maybe just to test something or to see if it would work better, but it clearly didn't. Alright then, this is the start of the biggest battle in the Warfare Championship. So by this point, I had changed defense code a lot. So you can see they're now very well split up. We've got some defenders on the right, some on the left, and we're going against some tier 1s, some tier 3 boosted squads. We've got 3 different players attacking. We've got Modus, we've got Aspuff, and then later we have Trepidemis. Technically Kelton shows up, but he doesn't really do anything. And we're successfully pushing them away from the ramparts, and we're actually killing a couple that are not really healing properly. Okay, so we have to skip ahead a bit because there was a history bug, but you can see on the left we've got a lot of creeps from Modus, and we're not really repairing. That's because we're out of energy. And then on the right we've got a very hit and run from Aspuff. We're able to take out a couple creeps, and we're splitting the defenders fairly well, but the main issue here is we're out of energy. My allies are sending me some, my other rooms are sending me some, but there is so many attackers that I just can't adequately deal with this with the energy that I have. So 3 defenders for this attack is nothing, and Modus should definitely be taking advantage of this, as Aspuff is, by getting right up next to the ramparts and ranged mass attacking. And that would especially be helpful for him because the ramparts are double layered, so he would deal even more damage to all of the ramparts. Now, I did double layer ramparts because when he breaks through one layer, he still has to break through maybe another. And that allows more defenders to sit next to the ramparts. But the issue is here, obviously, that I ran out of energy. And when you don't have energy, the double layer ramparts just means the enemy gets to deal way more damage to you in terms of rampart hits. we're able to take out a couple of creeps, and that's probably because Modus still has those boosting issues. So his creeps aren't getting the boost they need to. Some of them are half boosting, stuff like that. And he really should be spending tier 3 or tier 2 boosts on his quads. You'll notice I have a lot of labs set up. I've also got labs in my other rims at this point, so I could be boosting, especially if you look at the storage and terminal, but we just don't have the code for that yet. Now we have to skip it forward again, and you'll see we have some energy, and we're doing some repairing, but it's certainly not enough. There are so many attackers from Modus, and I think this quad, 2 of these squads here are tier 3 boosted, so they're dealing so much damage to these ramparts that we probably need some boosted repairers, some boosted defenders to alleviate that damage. Now you can't really see it, it was shown a little bit earlier, but Trepidemis is on the right, and he's sitting next to the ramparts dealing a lot of damage with ranged mass attack, and he's really distracting the defenders a lot. So that just hurts our energy even more, and the towers are firing way more than they should be, so it's really not great. Now, there are certainly some issues with the defender distribution. You can see the creeps are moving back and forth a lot more than they should, and you can see the trepidemis attacks on the right that are really hurting the defender distribution. It's just really hard to control such a massive area of designating where defenders should go. Now this just went on and on, attacks like this, maybe for 10,000, 15,000 ticks. So I've skipped over some of it, and others was lost to history bugs, but the energy drain is immense. Not just spawning all the defenders, but also all the repairing, all the tower shotting. A lot of it wasted on Trepidemis with some tower, inadequate code. But yeah, even though allies were sending a lot of energy, maybe 10,000 every 100 ticks or so, it just could not be, it was not enough. You can see when Aspuff and Trepidemis stop attacking, it's a lot easier just to handle one player, in this case Modus, one player at a time. But not exactly when Modus sends 4 quads, some of them with tier 3 boosted, and you can see here some of them have some boost issues, like that quad didn't have any boosts on its ranged. But it's a lot easier to deal with it, even when it's just one player, because we're able to just sit the defenders there and repair. It's easy to do, yet it does still cost energy that at this point we're completely out of. We've got a source in the bottom left, all the roads to it have been destroyed, and it's not very easy to get there. You can see some haulers make it, but others get killed. Some repairers are able to make the journey, but it takes a while because they're built to use roads and not to just go on planes. So 20 energy a tick is certainly not enough. And then on top of the 10,000 energy being sent every 100 tick or so, it's not a match for just how many attackers and for how long they're attacking for. Now I've sped it up here, and I had to skip again because there was a history bug, but I've sped it up here because there's just so much attacking to get through, and I don't want to burden you with all of it, but there's so much interesting stuff here as well. So definitely too many melee defenders here, although that was a side effect of, continuous attacking on the right side over there. in proper defender distribution, certainly. You can see there, like that left side on the top, it has no defenders now. They keep going back and forth way too much. There's definitely improvements to be made here. One of the main issues that I found, because I was making code improvements while this attack was happening, but I was trying to improve the code while this was happening, and the main issue I found was the creeps next to the ramparts on the exits from trepidemis that kept going back and forth. Those were really hard to code defenders for. Eventually you see here there's some bugs from Modus. He's got tier 3 boosted quads, 2 of them, and yet they're not really doing anything. You can also see here from Espen's, some of his creeps just don't have the boost that they should. That Dismantler is not fully boosted. He seems to be out of boosts, which is great news for me. Anyway, so Modus has these creeps down here, and they're not doing anything. They're just sitting here, and that's kind of the end. That's kind of where the attack ends. The quad does end up attacking a bit, but it's almost dead. It's almost old age, and then it just dies out. And by this point, my allies are sending a lot more energy. I've got a lot of defenders out, so by the end, it seems like an unequivocal victory. Wow, you can just see how many repairers there were. They really needed that much energy to keep up with all the damage that was happening, though. This is definitely the coolest attack. So what we see here is trepidemis with unboosted singletons that have a really good AI that all work together and do a great job avoiding defenders. So Viking's got a defender up here, he's not really doing anything. He's definitely not spawning enough repairers. He has some issues with extension filling. Once the defender moves in, the units from trepidemis move back. They move away, and then they move back again towards the ramparts once the defender is away. And the tower wasting some shots here, and there are some repairs from Viking, but not enough. And then if we skip ahead here, we can see trepidemis is healing some of Slow Motion Ghost's unit. Slow Motion Ghost is voiding the ranged mass attack, so he doesn't kill trepidemis' units. It's just really good teamwork. It's really fun to see. And then from Viking, these units up here, which are designed more for remote combat than room defense, that weren't really using the ramparts properly, and they just can't go against tier 3 creeps that they could have maybe gone against if they were under the ramparts and if they were using the defensive structures. With that, the room is taken. Now, I hope you either enjoyed something or learned something. And I definitely encourage you to get involved in Screeps Warfare Championship. No matter your skill level, it's a great way to improve your bot and learn programming or learn how to get better at Screeps. And if there's something I can improve in this video or something you want me to showcase in the future, please let me know. And lastly, I encourage you to check out Viking, who also did some commentary on this Warfare Championship.